I was talking with a friend in New York, um, and all of our emotions are always going all over the place. But right now, we're in a very specific experience. I talked with my mother for a while, who's in Indiana. I talked with this friend of mine who's in New York. I checked out a friend of mine who's in Alabama. And there's a lot of concern and anger about people not social distancing. For instance, like somebody I know is living with someone. Both of them are in about 70, and they both have health problems. And this is in the Midwest. And one of them is not at all concerned about this virus thing. He's a Republican who watches a lot of Fox News, but he's just like, oh, it's all overblown, or it's not, or he just, whatever his emotional reality is, he can't stay at home and isolate. Every day he's out and about doing things. He's still like meeting with friends and playing cards and going on fishing trips with friends. And every day he's going to Costco and Lowe's and Home Depot. And, both of them, I would say, they're 70. They both have health problems. One of them has high blood pressure, diabetes, and is overweight, which is, something that's been stated as being a similarity in a lot of the people that have had severe health complications to this virus, right? And so the other one stays at home and is isolating, and they're worried that this one who doesn't care and is being cavalier about this whole situation is going to bring the virus back and kill them both. And then this friend in Alabama was talking about how his niece is a nurse, and she's new to being a nurse, like a few months into it, and she's in the middle of this hellstorm. And he's like, yeah, it'd be really great if you stay home so that she doesn't die from overwork and infection, and she and all of her compatriots who are trying to help. If you can just put aside your needs for a couple months, and so you've heard that rhetoric, right? So that's a reality. And this friend of mine in New York, he goes out and he sits in the park every once in a while, and he goes out and he does some shopping, becoming more and more aware of the fact that this is not going to be over soon. It's going to be another couple hard weeks or months. And now the doctors say you should wear masks when you go out, and now the doctors say even just small exchanges of talking with people can transmit the virus. He says that he still often has situations where he'll turn on the news and he'll start screaming like a crazy person at the TV. He says he has situations where he will sit on a park bench and just start crying. And then he said, I don't know when this is going to be over. Another few weeks. I don't know if I can take another fucking few weeks of this. I mean, it's starting to get boring really quick. All these people at home, they're just posting all this shit about all the things they're doing. There's so much information. There's so much stuff out. And I responded to him that perhaps what's more important right now is his rage and his sorrow, and not his boredom. There's, as some of you know, I had like a life-changing series of events that happened a few years ago where I did a pilgrimage across Spain and did a lot of mantras while I was doing it, which kind of opened up this Buddhist door, and then I started doing a lot of silent meditation retreats. And one of the things they talk about in these silent meditation retreats is it's the opposite of entertainment. Like, entertainment is this thing where there's a whole bunch of amazing lights and sounds and other people's feelings and stories that distract you from what's happening right now, and it's entertaining. So the news is entertainment, really, and church is entertaining, and there's all sorts of things that are entertaining. Obviously, theater and music and puzzles. But meditation's the opposite of entertainment. It's you can do mantras and you can do all sorts of visualizations and you can have entertainment in meditation. But the type of meditation they were teaching was doing nothing but paying attention to what's happening right now. Which, if you try to do it for an hour, like this is the meditation challenge, that you can set a timer for an hour and just sit in your apartment and try to do nothing but pay attention to what's happening right now. You will find that within about 5 seconds, your mind is like, oh, but what if I can eat a cookie in 10 minutes? Or, God, I really am looking forward to getting up and peeing, and I want to see what's happening on Facebook again. Whatever it is, your mind is going to constantly be pulling you out of now. Your body's going to be pulling you out of now. It's very, very difficult to stay in the present moment. And I mean, this sounds cliche as fuck, which is why I encourage you to try it. To just sit down, set a timer for an hour, because like you have so much time right now, and in the spirit of adventure and experimentation, see how difficult it is to stay in the present with nothing happening. Like if you have no TV on, if you have no radio on, there's no one else in the room, and you just try to stay in the present, a lot of times you'll just get bored. That is a normal, what they call a hindrance in the Buddhist practice. There's 5 typical hindrances. But boredom is a really great signifier as well of an opportunity for you to see something that you don't want to see. So if any of you have done any lucid dreaming exercises, there are practices where every time you walk through a threshold, you pinch yourself, or you ask yourself, am I awake? And if you could do that towards boredom, maybe for a day or a week or a month, notice the flavor of boredom, if you can get it, if you can understand how your body responds to boredom, what impulses come up, and try to remember what happened 10 seconds before you noticed the boredom. Like, were you feeling sad? Were you angry? Were you remembering something that was unpleasant? Were you thinking of something true that you didn't want to know? That's very often like what boredom will come from. I've been teaching Qigong every morning to these younger men who are here. One's 33 and one's 24. But younger men aren't really my thing. So it's been really fun to spend time with them and hear how they respond to my teachings and just their version of life. And they were telling me that one of the practices, I guess I had inspired them to explore on their own, or they were working together after smoking a J. They were exploring the idea of yin and yang as it referred to receiving answers. And they were thinking, well, is it a more masculine thing to do to ask a question? Is it more feminine to just receive the answer without asking, to take it? And, I was saying that it's possible to do either of these things in a masculine or a feminine way, in an active or passive way. But the ultimate practice there is to be able to stay with an answer when something's being revealed to you, and then when there's nothing being revealed to you, how do you stay in the present? And that was kind of the interesting thing, like of them trying to talk about like how do you receive knowledge, wisdom when it comes out of the ether, when it comes out of nothing. These kind of insights is what they call often in meditation, that if you don't ask a question, but if you just sit and wait, so much wisdom is revealed to you. And I guess that's what I'm getting at, that if you can spend some time honoring your real emotional experience when it happens, when you notice the rage and you can explore the sensation of the rage apart from the story, apart from the external political story. Because again, there are a lot of my friends who are very angry about Trump for a long period of time. And so right now, everything that's happening that's wrong, you can very easily just point at him and be like, this fucker fucked up and it's his fucking fault. And if he didn't do this, we wouldn't be in this situation. But it's incredibly wrong to think that, because the entire world is involved in this right now. The entire world is having this lockdown pandemic situation. It's not Trump's fault. I don't know if there's anyone's fault that it is, if it's other than ours. It could be all of ours. Which I guess is more what I want to get to. I really want to encourage you to explore the impetus behind boredom. I really want you to honor and explore your mourning and your rage. Maybe work on expressing it, not necessarily putting it out on the internet, but yes, why not? But perhaps journaling it, that kind of thing. But also to examine what I feel the problem of this pandemic is. I guess it's the problem of everyday life, but this pandemic is doing a great job of highlighting it for us. We've all been given this moment to be in a meditation retreat where we because of the agreements that we make with society of wanting to be a good person and doing what is asked of us, what is expected of us, and again, following our own impulse of wanting to help the people we love. We're isolating and we're taking time to be alone. We've all been asked to have a time out, to sit with our nose in the corner and think about what we've done. Or we could just binge watch everything available on Netflix, no matter how stupid it is, 17 times. There's infinite entertainment throughout the history of humanity that we can be entertained with, like this right now. This could be entertaining, this could be a moment of reflection. So I want, for anybody who watches this now or later, people to sit and reflect on death. Because a big part of the hysteria here is we don't want to die. It doesn't sound amazing. It's not, earth-shattering. We don't want the people we like, we don't want the people we love to die. And even though some of us might feel like we hate people, a lot of us really back off when we're wishing someone dead, especially in this situation. This friend was talking to me about how Boris Johnson is in the ICU right now, and a lot of you may freely have hated him recently for lots of reasons. But earnestly in your heart, do you wish him dead? Do you wish anyone? Like, can you actually conjure up your creative energy to desire someone to suffer from what we've heard this disease is and die? Would you wish that on someone? So, in our nature as good people and wanting to be good citizens, wanting to be good friends, wanting to be good family, we still find it difficult to earnestly channel our energy into wanting someone to be dead. It's really important, if we have the opportunity, to examine what our relationship is with death, and if we can make peace with death. One of the things that I've said a lot about around this time, that the entire world we've never had the opportunity when a pandemic has hit. I've done a lot of research on pandemics in the last few weeks. I don't know if you have. That's one of the things I've been spending a lot of time researching on the internet. I will post about it. Pandemics have happened frequently, and we are actually in the midst of many pandemics that are still happening on the surface of the planet, and some of them are global. There are a lot of them that are much more deadly than COVID-19, and COVID-19 is new. I'm not going to argue about flattening the curve and all that, but the consensus reality group story has put us all in prison and paralyzed the economy, which up until a few months ago was kind of the whole purpose of most people's lives in at least the United States and a lot of the Western world. So a lot of people are really left lurching and bored because that's not happening right now. That story has been interrupted. Because we're afraid of death, we've never had the opportunity when we've had pandemics before that everybody could key in, that everybody had to give their piece about what we're doing, where everybody could support each other on the tactics to prevent death. But it's really important to use this as a time of reflection, as a metaphor, to understand what kind of damage we do to our own lives, to our own friends, to our families, to our society, by being afraid of death. So afraid of death that we're addicted to drugs or entertainment or sex or just delusion, because we can't sit with the fact that we're dying and that we're going to die. When you reflect on how you are eventually going to die, because you are definitely going to die, and everyone you know and everyone you love is going to die, if you sit and you reflect on that, most people just don't want to do that. Look at just like 4 people just turned off. They're just disconnect. If you sit and you feel that, you can imagine how you've seen other people die. If you had the option, would you like to die over 5 years of your body being eaten away by cancer? Would you like to die of having dementia and forgetting who everyone is, including yourself? Would you like to die in a car crash? Would you like to die skiing or mountain climbing, if that's something you love? Would you like to die helping people in a pandemic? 2 weeks of suffering, or maybe a week of suffering if you weren't on a ventilator and you happened to be one of the people who had a lung inflammation. Which is better? Is there a better? Has it ever occurred to you that there are skills about dying, that there are practices that you can reflect on throughout your life? You can ask yourself every day, am I prepared to die? Am I equipped to die? Am I ready to die? Can I be at peace with dying? And that gets back to what I was saying earlier, that if you can, for any length of time, any continuity, stay in the present without needing to divert attention, entertain, distract, that gives you more of an opportunity to explore what it's like to die. Being closer with the experience of actual living, the sensations, all of the subtle sensations of the body and the mind and the heart, breath. There are a lot of practices through a lot of religions, through a lot of just spiritual practices that, and actually you don't even need any teachings or spiritual practices. There's lots of wonderful stories of people who were just able to lay back and let go of their life, let go of their body. Is this something that you could value? And is this something that, like, how would that affect your life? And if you imagine the life of humanity as a spirit, if we're all little neurons in the brain of humanity, if we're all cells in the body of the corpus of humanity, how could that change the functioning of humanity on this planet, in this time, in this version? By being at peace with death, by being friends with death, not necessarily wanting to die, because that's a different story, but having the skills, having the patience, having the presence, the compassion, the empathy to be with death, so that when we meet death, because we will all meet death, and we meet death actually, most of us, many times through our lives, in our loved ones, in our family, in our friends, and sometimes in many other horrific ways, to be able to understand that it's just as natural and normal as the autumn leaves falling off the trees, and I guess people's pets dying. But that's what I've been seeing is, I talk to people and I hear how afraid they are of dying. They don't want to get this disease because they don't want to die, and that's what the story is many times throughout my life. I was born in 1978 and raised through the AIDS years, and when I first became sexually aware, it was just like, hi, if you have sex, you're gonna die, and I was just like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that? Well, if you're gonna pay attention to that, you're gonna learn how to make peace with death, because you're gonna die. And it's funny, I thought I was gonna die in my 20s, and then it turned out I didn't, so now I'm just like, I'm gonna live, be old, but eventually I'm gonna die. So it's something I've been really obsessed with my whole life. I'm not as obsessed as tight anymore because I've done a lot of work on it. And, but I keep seeing this, that if we didn't get bored, if we didn't devote so much time and energy to distraction, and we noticed we were scared, or noticed we were sad, or noticed we were angry, and like a good parent, soothed ourselves and calmed ourselves down and said, honey, it's okay, tell me about it. And we sat in silence and we listened to our fear, to our sadness, to our sorrow, to our anger, our grief. It ameliorates the panic. I definitely spiraled up in this panic about a month ago, and I cried when I read stories about my friends in New York who were making, I was going to say sacrifices, but sacrifice isn't the right word, who were making choices to change what they were doing with their lives so that they could help the situation with the skills they had available to them. To see the goodness of these people, to put helping others above their own fear of death, I just find that so courageous and so beautiful. I cried about that, to see that goodness, to feel that goodness. And I started reading a book, Love in the Time of Cholera, just because, I wanted to spend some time with someone who's a beautiful writer, that man's amazing, Gabriel Garcia Marquez. If you've never read any of his books, he does such a good job of telling stories. And within the telling of the always the kind of novels I enjoy reading, that within the telling of the stories, they share all of the wisdom. They share heaps of wisdom about the human experience. John Crowley does that in a lot of his books, and I guess there's a lot of others, but Gabriel Garcia Marquez does a great job of that. In Love in the Time of Cholera, I cried at the death of one of the characters. Is early in the book. Don't worry. It's like, because again, there was just so much beauty about the depth of the love this character carried, and that's what made me cry about the death, was that it was talking about how this love, he didn't get a chance to adequately say goodbye to this person he'd spent 50 years of his life with, because he died unexpectedly, fell out of, I don't want to say. So it was interesting for me to explore that with me. I've been doing a lot of death work and being like, wow, so, here I've been saying like, wow, people are, freaking out about this whole thing because they don't want to die and they don't want people to die, as if that were an option, It's one of those insane, we do many insane things. All of us do many insane things, but to be totally broken up about something that's more inevitable than anything else in life. But I cried over the idea of death in relationship to the goodness of the human intention, the human spirit. And I'm so grateful to be able to have experienced that. But when I hear my friends in panic and fear and confusion, I just really want them to figure out a way to make peace with death. We have this time now. We have this quietude. We have this forced isolation. We're all on a meditation retreat. I'm repeating this for people who are looking right now. And there's so many resources available. So I've been working on this post for a couple weeks where I'm just basically compiling lots of information about pandemics and death and world records. It's fascinating to me that if you look at the world clock, I'll post a link to it, there's this world clock that shows people being born, people being died, population of the planet, blah, 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 blah. Population is still increasing right now. What is it today? 150,000 people died. Today, 150,000 people died, I think. Including COVID, but everything else. Today, 258,000 people were born. Or 300,000 people were born. There's 7,778,500 something thousand people on the planet right now. The practice of meditation or sitting and being with our feelings can be quite heavy if you don't have, if it's not occurred to you to practice the art of letting go, which I didn't understand anything about letting go until I did a lot of meditation. Recently meditation, because I started meditating when I was 18, but I was doing mantra meditation, and I wasn't getting any dharma, I wasn't getting any teaching. I was just meditating on my own and having experiences. But there's this idea of understanding that no matter who you are and what your life story is, also true is you are a member of the human race, and also true is you are one of the many beings living on this planet. And also true is you are one of the many, 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 many countless points of light in the universe. And if any story is true, all of these stories nest inside of each other like Matryoshka. You can identify at any point with your beard or your tattoos or your nipple rings or your genitals You can identify with your gender, your skin color, your religion. You can identify with your species, your genus. You can identify with your nation. You can identify with the planet. You can identify with the universe. You can sit and say, I am all of creation. And you can feel it to be true. And you can feel anything that gets in the way of that. And you can let it go. And it will keep coming up, and you can keep letting it go until it no longer has any power over you. It's a practice. And death is one of those things, because just as surely as you're going to die, the story of your life goes on far longer than the death that you will ever know. The smallest things you do, you don't know what kind of impact that's going to have extrapolated thousands of years into the future. And giving yourself, oh look, the moon's rising over my shoulder. And giving yourself the opportunity to be humble and understand that you don't know what effect your life is having on the history of the entire story of the universe, but trust in the fact that it's okay for you to die, just as it was okay for you to live, and just as it's okay for you to be exactly as you are, exactly as you need to be, to learn what you need to learn, to do what you need to do, to play how you want to play, to be your specific expression of existence, coming into being and passing away. That there's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing to be frightened about. Just like you go to sleep every night. Sometimes you wake up, and eventually you don't. Anyway. You can look at the ocean. You can look at the ocean and see that it kind of goes on forever. There's so many examples of this kind of evidence. Looking at the night sky, looking at the gradient of the sky, the wave of color. It's hard to appreciate these things if you're terrified of dying, if you're terrified of being one with the majesty of existence. Then you don't get to experience one of the greatest things about being part of the majesty of existence, is knowing that this is you. Just as much as what you know of your human story. And if you practice letting go of what impedes you from being at peace with it, putting yourself in situations where you can spend more time of your life feeling at peace with being one with everything. Then you can carry that kind of peace to the world around you. You can hear people's fears and remind them that they'll be okay. We can't control other people, and we're going to die eventually anyway, so you may as well practice being at peace with it right now. There's this Buddhist practice that I like called, 5 daily reflections or something. The first one is Everything is subject to aging. I have not gone beyond aging. There is nothing I can do to keep from aging. I will age. I will get old. Or at least I will age. And understanding that that's true, I mean, we all know it's true, but if you just say it out loud in your quiet room and see how it feels, and just say like, oh, can I be at peace with that? Can I accept that as true? And can I notice what emotions it brings up in me? Can that be okay? Practice, right? The second one is, there is sickness, right? There is sickness. I've not gone beyond sickness. I'm subject to sickness. Nothing I can do will keep me from sickness. I mean, yes, you can work out and you can eat better and everything, but eventually you get sick anyway. You get a cold or the flu or the cancer or whatever. The people who try the hardest to avoid getting sick still get sick. So you admit, I'm subject to sickness. I will get sick. And can you be at peace with that? The third one is, there is death. I have not gone beyond death, therefore I am subject to death, and someday I will die. And can you notice how that feels? Can you be okay with it? Can you accept it as true? Because it is true. And I was talking, I shouldn't have to die, a friend of mine said. I just feel like it's wrong. Maybe someday death will be an option. Maybe, but right now, the current rules of the game are we have to die, so can you be okay with that? It's a good place to go from, to be at. The fourth one, which I found a lot harder when I first started practicing this, but I'm better with it now, is everything and everyone I know and love, I will be separated from at some point, either when I die or before. Again, this is true. Though there are lots of stories that talk about how you can be together in heaven or have your own planet and have your whole family with you there. We don't know about that, but we do know that either you're going to lose your favorite watch at some point accidentally or on purpose, or your best friend's going to die, or your dog's going to die, or your parents are going to die. You know this is true. People you love, everything you love, all the objects and all the people are going to die, or you'll be separated from somehow, just fade out. And if you sit with that, can you find a way to be okay with it? And again, this is like a daily reflection, this idea, can you do this every day? And the fifth one, which is very useful but a little harder for us to grapple with because this is not a big part of our culture, is I am heir to my karma, and all of the actions that I perform are sowing the seeds for the future karma that I will live off of. It's still a nice thing to meditate on. Again, we don't live with it. And a lot of people think of karma as some kind of ghost or demon or God in our culture, like the karma police. Or karma's gonna get you, or instant karma. But it's also a way of understanding that you probably most of us don't remember being born, or what happened before we were born, or why we were born, or what kind of agreements we made to come into this world, if we even believe such things are true like that, if that's even possible. For those of you who are more materialists and believe only in this life, you can think of it like you don't remember what you did last Monday at 5 p.m. You don't remember what you did September the 2nd, the year 2007, off the top of your head. it's really hard to understand. Even if you do understand these things, you didn't make the whole complex world that you're living in. You didn't make all these rules, and to a certain degree, many of us didn't even agree to them, and yet we are subject to them. We're living in this reality, and we have to do the best we can to be at peace with it and accept it as it is and work with what is available to us. And if that's kind of, I think, what that statement is more about, that if we can be at peace with understanding that the world we live in is kind of what we deserve, because it's where we are, we're here, and each individual choice and action you make is like a vote. People talk about the importance of voting. It's like a vote you're casting for the future. So if some of you may have seen this meme going around already, if you're rushing for everything to get back to normal, you might want to pause and reflect and ask yourself, do I really want things to be like they were before? Because I don't know if you remember a couple months ago, some of you might have been aware that there was we were living in a society that was exploitive and abusive and corrupt, and like a crazy locomotive with no brakes, it was just plowing the future away with no way of stopping it. And some miracle has stopped that whole fucking crazy machine. It's an amazing opportunity to imagine what world we want to live in. Because the world that we were living in has stopped right now. It's like most of the spinning plates have stopped. There's still some spinning plates going, I'm aware, but people are excited about how there's less pollution in the rivers and the airs, and not that you're outside to enjoy them as much, but when the world gets going again, do you want things? Do you really want to go back to the same cafe? Go back to the same gym? Do you really want to go back to the same restaurant? Do you want everything to be exactly the way it was before? Because it was all dependent on a system of corruption that was facilitated by energy choices and resource choices that were making the planet we're living on unlivable. So if you can dream in your solitude, in your great cities of great solitude, if you can use some of this time to not be entertained by other people's creations, but dream of what world you'd like to live in this body, or in your next body, or in your children, what would you want that to be? And maybe you could just think about, like, what about this normal life that we've had to give up are you okay with not having anymore in order to live in a world that was more kind, whatever you value. Again, I've been talking about this a long time, but and a million people have, hopefully more than a million, that it's possible that the greedy people of the world might all of a sudden just be like, that's pretty crazy, and it's not very kind, and it's not a really good idea, and maybe I should give a few billion of my dollars back to the people who aren't living like this. Maybe I should create institutions that empower them to not make such choices that make them miserable. I mean, changing the culture mechanisms that program the minds of cultures. again, I have my dreams. I work on my dreams. I'm sure a lot of you do. But that's just my wish. My sincere wish is that we can make peace with death so that this kind of panic spiral has no power over us, and that we can dream of a world that we want to live in. We didn't make the rules we were born into. We're at this strange pause. Whereas Tom York said, and many others, the angels are leaning over the balcony. What are we going to do when we turn it back on again? What are we going to do when we turn society back on again? The inertia has stopped for a moment, so you can't just say like, oh, I couldn't just stop using my car because it kills millions of people and pollutes the whole planet and makes the future impossible. I couldn't stop using my car. Maybe you could, because you have. Maybe you could stop using plastic bags. Maybe you could stop, I don't know, stop buying products from companies that are destroying the planet. Voting, every decision we make is a vote for the future. The money we spend, the attention we spend, the ideas we proliferate, it's a vote for the future. And we can't change our programming unless we can be in the present and notice when we make those decisions and decide to change them. So I guess that's enough for now. I'm going to post a writing either today or tomorrow about some of the research I've done on pandemics and death. Maybe I'll write more about it. And I'll post some links to resources of Buddhist practices and Taoist practices, things we can do, tools that people who have spent most of their life sitting in fucking caves or something have come up with to help us be in the present. To just watch our breath. I think I'll sit for a moment and let all the words kind of drift away with the wind and the ocean waves. And then I'll Om. So I'll turn the camera around.